So a very good afternoon to you all. I hope you had some time for a lunch. My name is James Fitzgerald. I'm the Director of the Department of Health Systems and Services at the Pan American Health Organization. And welcome to this side event that we've organized around the 59th PAHO Directing Council on technology transfer for the production of mRNA vaccines in the Americas. We've prepared a short agenda for you today. With some opening remarks from Dr. Etienne, some then interventions from the IDV, WHO, and the Assistant Director, and then some regional comments from some of our ministers before we open it for discussion. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Dr. Etienne, who will provide us with opening remarks. Dr. Etienne?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. Let me again greet the Ministers of Health and the delegates of the 59th PAHO Directing Council. Good afternoon, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, your Chief Scientist, WHO. Nice to have you, Mr. Ferdinando Gregalia, Division Chief of Health and Social Protection at the Inter-American Development Bank. A very good afternoon to all of those who are joining us in this session. The region of the Americas continues to lead in global infections of COVID-19, with 7 of the top 20 countries in the world with the highest mortality rates being found in Latin America. Just over 33% of people in Latin America and the Caribbean have completed their COVID-19 vaccinations. And in many countries, coverage is much lower, and in some countries in the single digits. Delays in production have meant that many countries are still awaiting the doses they purchased months ago. Limited vaccine supplies continue to set us back. A handful of companies produce all the world's supply of COVID-19 vaccines, and many of them are letting price and country of origin, not need, determine how and where doses are rolled out. This limited production and unequal distribution of vaccines in the face of staggering demand hinder our COVID response in the Americas. Mass vaccination is critical if we are to stem the tide of this pandemic and mitigate against the spread of further variants. We've heard from the 59th Directing Council that Latin America and the Caribbean are especially vulnerable since we depend almost entirely on manufacturers outside of this region to produce the raw pharmaceutical materials, medicines, and health technologies that our populations need to stay healthy. The regional policy document presented at the Directing Council calls on increased intersectoral action between health, science, and technology and industry to develop research and production capacity in the Americas. It urges countries to increase the know-how and infrastructure in biomedical science, engineering, and regulatory capacity to address current and future needs. And importantly, it calls on the spirit of Pan-Americanism, the collective and cohesive action amongst countries to build robust capacity and the supply chains within the Americas that will address needs and future pandemic needs. So these actions are particularly relevant for vaccine manufacturing in the Americas. This region has enormous potential and capacity to increase vaccine manufacturing. We see COVID-19 vaccines being developed from basic research in the United States, Cuba, and Brazil. We have seen the proliferation of tech transfer agreements for vaccine manufacturing across multiple platforms between manufacturers and countries, including Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, including fill and finish agreements in Colombia, Chile, and Peru. And we have witnessed the engagement of smaller economies and island nations in defining national and sub-regional strategies to increase manufacturing capacity and to access vaccines. So it is within this context that PAHO WHO is spearheading an initiative that we believe will significantly contribute to increased production capacity for COVID-19 vaccines, as well as for routine immunizations in the Americas. In April of this year, WHO launched a call for expressions of interest to contribute to the establishment of a tech transfer hub for mRNA vaccines. We, PAHO, actively promoted this initiative in the Americas, knowing the untapped potential that exists in this region. We sought interest from small, middle-sized, public or private manufacturers of medical products to host a COVID-19 mRNA hub and/or receive the technology that could be developed into an mRNA vaccine in this region. My dear colleagues, we were very pleasantly surprised with the level of responses and the engagement of countries and manufacturers alike in this call for action. We received more than 30 expressions of interest, with 9 substantive proposals from manufacturers and interested parties from throughout the region, and certainly more in this region than from any other region globally. In June, we convened more than 300 representatives from industry, science and technology, and the health sector to present the initial outcomes of the mRNA expression of interest and to present to interested parties the next steps. And in August, we issued a second expression of interest to call on the private sector to inform us of their capacity and plans to increase manufacturing capacity for pharmaceutical grade reagents and supplies that are required to produce an mRNA vaccine. These focused and targeted interventions will be developed through the PAHO regional platform to advance the manufacturing capacity for medicines, vaccines, and health technologies, a regional platform that we launched at the end of August. I convened this platform to increase the level of collaboration and coordination of all stakeholders around our common objectives and to provide the technical know-how to support the development of specific proposals. And the first and most important project this platform will prioritize is the development of mRNA vaccines in the Americas. This afternoon, we will announce the outcomes of our collective work to date. We will hear of the initiatives that have been selected by PAHO WHO independent technical group that were tasked to evaluate expressions of interest for the development of the mRNA vaccines. We will hear of the proposals and the work that has been done in arduously assessing and reviewing these proposals. And we note in selecting development projects, the commitments being made by manufacturers to support tech transfer and access to mRNA vaccines to the whole region, including through the PAHO Vaccine Revolving Fund mechanism. Our aim to establish a regional consortium across the region, linking the production of the mRNA with the production of multiple reagents and products that are required for the complete production cycle. And that's why we are proposing this regional platform. We propose to stimulate the development of regional supply chains where countries in the Americas can contribute and work together to reduce the critical inputs that are required to produce an mRNA vaccines. So it's an all-of-region approach where every country would be able to work together to ensure that we work towards self-sufficiency, beginning with the mRNA vaccine. And then, as the resolution that we just passed indicates, we will move to self-sufficiency in the production of health technology, medicines, and other vaccines. Thank you so much to all of our collaborators who have worked with us. Dr. Jamas, AD, and Dr. Swaminathan, the chief scientist, will inform this meeting of those initiatives that have been selected for the development of the mRNA vaccines in the Americas. I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath to hear those selected. In doing so, however, we recognize the important contributions of so many manufacturers throughout the region to this process, and we seek their continued commitment in the process. And in selecting the mRNA initiatives for targeted action, we note that that is only the beginning of a long process where selected manufacturers commit themselves to further technology development and transfer and to supplying the whole region with the product of their endeavors. I want to personally thank all companies, stakeholders, and countries that continue to participate in this process. And I seek their continued engagement through the regional platform. I wish to acknowledge and to thank the World Trade Organization and the IDB for their continued support and for the facilitation of processes that will lead to increased vaccine production capacity. Let me also thank our colleagues and partners at WHO Geneva for their continued input and technical support. It is through collective action, working hand in hand, that we can reduce the vulnerability of this region to pandemics, ensure health security, and support the health, social, and economic development of all of us in all countries. So thank you so very much for being here with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Etienne, for those opening remarks. Dr. Etienne mentioned very clearly the importance of multiple stakeholders involved in this process, not least the importance also of financing for some of these initiatives. And we're very pleased to have with us this morning Ferdinando Regalia, who is the Division Chief of Social Protection and the Health Division at the IDB. And so, Ferdinando, we'd like to hand over to you for some opening remarks.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Fitzgerald. Voy a hacer mis intervención en español. Muy buenas tardes a todos, a todas. Es un verdadero honor estar con todos ustedes en esta mesa virtual. Muchas gracias por la invitación para participar en esta importante sesión en la cual vamos a conocer los proyectos regionales seleccionados para la producción de vacunas basadas en ARN mensajero en Latinoamérica y en el Caribe como resultado de esta importante iniciativa de la OPS y OMS. Durante la pandemia de SARS hubo mucha investigación y desarrollo para producir una vacuna contra los coronavirus. El esfuerzo, sin embargo, disminuyó en el tiempo una vez que la amenaza o la percepción de la amenaza se redujo. Creemos que una lección muy importante de esta pandemia para el mundo es que no podemos disminuir los esfuerzos presentes y futuros relacionados con la investigación, desarrollo y producción de vacunas. La pandemia mostró la facilidad con la que las cadenas de suministro pueden interrumpirse debido a la producción concentrada de insumos clave y a la barrera a la exportación. En este sentido, la pandemia nos ha reafirmado la necesidad de mayor inversión en investigación y desarrollo, tanto para vacunas como para otros insumos, dispositivos y medicamentos esenciales, así como en capacidad de producción a nivel regional para enfrentar la emergencia sanitaria presente y las futuras. El BID, a través de su visión estratégica 2025, identifica rutas para apoyar a los países de la región hacia su recuperación de manera inclusiva y sostenible. Y una de estas rutas es la oportunidad de una mayor integración regional y reinversión. A medida que las empresas busquen beneficiarse de la proximidad geográfica y transfieran sus operaciones a zonas más cercanas, esta regionalización irá creando nuevas oportunidades de inversión en América Latina y el Caribe. Desde el BID aplaudimos esfuerzos como el que nos reúne hoy, pues es fundamental fortalecer la capacidad de innovación y desarrollo y de producción y lograr una mayor diversidad geográfica en la cadena de suministros. Asimismo, es clave fomentar la colaboración regional y el trabajo conjunto entre los países, con el objetivo de potencializar esfuerzos y beneficiar a todos de manera equitativa. Desde el principio de la pandemia, el BID ha trabajado para innovar y flexibilizar sus instrumentos de financiamiento y sus procesos. En 2020 aumentamos la disponibilidad de fondos, ajustamos los instrumentos crediticios y agilizamos los procedimientos de aprobación para ayudar a los países a obtener los recursos necesarios de manera más ágil. Solo en el sector salud aprobamos más de $1.200 millones de apoyo a la respuesta al COVID-19 en 15 países prestatarios, y asimismo movilizamos otros $1.000 millones para apoyar la compra y el despliegue de la vacuna contra el COVID, con la cual se ha beneficiado hasta la fecha 10 países prestatarios. Actualmente, desde la ventana pública y privada del BID, estamos listos para explorar posibles apoyos a los proyectos regionales seleccionados por la iniciativa que nos convoca hoy, así como a cualquier otra actividad necesaria para establecer esta tecnología en la región. Mirando hacia el futuro, creemos que es muy importante, tanto para el BID como para otras instituciones sociofinancieras, aumentar nuestro apoyo al financiamiento de investigación y desarrollo y al fortalecimiento de la capacidad de producción de vacunas y otras tecnologías sanitarias en la región. Es una responsabilidad colectiva de todos nosotros mantener el foco de inversión sobre estos temas, aun cuando en un futuro que esperamos sea próximo, esta pandemia comience a remitir. Esto requerirá que invertamos más en colaboración regional, como hemos mencionado, en alianza público-privada, muy en línea con nuestra estrategia Visión 2025, y en fortalecer el sector público, pues aumentar la capacidad de investigación, desarrollo y manufactura de productos biológicos exige, por ejemplo, el fortalecimiento de la regulación sanitaria. Por lo tanto, desde el Grupo BID seguiremos trabajando para apoyar a los países de América Latina y el Caribe y nuestros socios tan importantes como la OPS, y para innovar en términos de financiamiento para atender a necesidades y prioridades de los países. Cuente con nuestra colaboración con esta iniciativa y enhorabuena. Muchísimas gracias.
Many thanks, Ferdinando, for those remarks, really highlighting the importance, I think, of financing for research and development, and also ultimately for the translation of that research and development into processes for the overall development of vaccines, so important, and other health technologies, so important in the region of the Americas. So many thanks, Ferdinando. We are now going to move to the part of the event where we will be announcing the selected regional initiatives for mRNA vaccine development in the Americas. We are really very pleased to have with us WHO Chief Scientist, Soumya Swaminathan. Soumya and her team have been supporting the region in this process going way back to April with the announcement of the expressions of interest. And so we really do want to thank Soumya for her presence here, and of course all the technical team that she brings with her. Soumya, over to you.
Thank you so much, James, and very good afternoon to your excellencies, Dr. Etienne, Dr. Jarbas. I will be very brief and let Dr. Jarbas give you all the details, but essentially just wanted to remind us about what this initiative is all about. And it is really about sustainable regional health security. Means that every region should have vaccine manufacturing capacity and should have access to technologies that permit the rapid development and production of epidemic and pandemic vaccines. But we have to remember that this also needs to be sustainable. And so in between the epidemics and pandemics, we need to be using this technology to potentially produce other vaccines that are needed. So why mRNA? Clearly, this technology compared to others has proven to be highly successful, at least for COVID vaccines, and is also very highly adaptable. So not just for the variants that this virus may throw at us in the future, but also against other pathogens. And there's already work that started now on using mRNA platform for malaria and TB vaccines, for example. It can also be used to develop, to produce monoclonal antibodies. So it's a very versatile platform, and therefore it has advantages. We initially, within the ACT Accelerator, there was a lot of interest and discussion on establishing manufacturing capacity for vaccines, but also for therapeutics and diagnostics. But within COVAX, along with Gavi and CEPI and UNICEF, we decided to focus on vaccine manufacturing capacity to begin with, specifically COVID vaccines. So the manufacturing task force was launched with 3 objectives. The first one was very addressing some of the upstream issues around things like the shortage of plastic bags, bioreactor bags, glass vials, reagents, raw materials for vaccines. A lot of this was related to export restrictions, and we were working with both the private sector and organizations like the World Trade Organization to sort out some of those problems. CEPI has now created a marketplace where suppliers of raw materials can come together with manufacturers of vaccines. This is now going to be expanded beyond COVID vaccines so that we can solve the global problem of the shortages of these materials, because we know that for all vaccines, things have to move between countries, and there are lots of ingredients that go into vaccines. So this marketplace idea was led by CEPI along with the private sector partners, and it's up and running now. And as I said, it's going to be expanded beyond COVID and will become a part of the day-to-day work. The second work stream is focused around encouraging manufacturers to do voluntary licensing. And the third work stream, which is what WHO is leading along with the medicines patent pool, is to enable manufacturers to acquire technology for manufacturing. And this work actually would not be needed if the current manufacturers, those who have the know-how, would have agreed to share openly with people around the world. But since that did not happen, we have had to move ahead with this concept of an mRNA technology transfer hub. The first hub is being set up in South Africa. The selection for the hub was made from applications that we had received by a group called the PDVAC. The PDVAC is a product development for vaccines advisory committee. It's an independent committee of experts in vaccine development. They reviewed all the proposals and had a set of criteria against which the applications were scored. These included things like the experience of the company in vaccine production, government support and financing, sustainability, access to financing, and so on. And the similar process has been followed for Latin America. Dr. Jarbas will give you more details on the companies and sites that have been selected. What we will offer now is really to support companies which have their own technology, because many companies around the world have their own mRNA technology that they're developing, and we can support by providing access to experts who will assist in comparing their technology with gold standards, experts on scale up, as well as on other elements of the ecosystem like the regulatory upgrading if that is needed, as well as training for the workforce that may be needed to work in these centers. Other centers which do not have already an in-house mRNA technology will be invited to come and receive technology from the mRNA Tech Transfer Hub that's been set up in South Africa. And this will start happening from the beginning of 2022. The hub will provide all of the, they first have to establish the technology, but then will be able to provide not only the complete know-how and the SOPs, but also access to all the material and all the data of the preclinical and clinical validation studies. So we are currently pursuing a number of different options for the South African Technology Transfer Hub. Obviously, if we have BioNTech, Pfizer, or Moderna coming in with their own tried and tested technology, we can move very fast. But in the absence, there are many other mRNAs in different parts of the world that have come to various stages of development, and we can go ahead with the clinical development and down selection of some of those products. Obviously, they all have to meet the benchmarks and the standards of safety and efficacy, and but we're trying to speed up this whole process with all the experience that's been gathered over the last few months. And we're really looking forward, and would like to congratulate PAHO for taking the lead, as well as the region for having come together with such solidarity to discuss this regional initiative, which is really, I think, going to stand us all in good stead in the future. Thank you very much, and over to Jarbas for the details.
Thank you, Soumya. I want again to thank you for the support. It was really a very collaborative work between our team here in Washington and your team in Geneva, and I think that this will be very important to move this initiative forward. Dear Director, Dr. Etienne, colleagues from PAHO, colleagues from the Ministries of Health, I will make my intervention in Spanish to provide a better balance. Com el fin de incrementar las capacidades de producción de vacunas contra la COVID-19 y ampliar su acceso en las Américas, la OPS y OMS ha seleccionado 2 propuestas para crear 2 centros, hubs, para el desarrollo y producción de vacunas con tecnología ARN mensajero. El proceso de selección consideró todas las expresiones de interés recebidas de región, tanto del setor público como del setor privado. O lançamento dessa iniciativa, que ocorreu há cerca de 2 meses, tivemos mais de 300 pessoas que participaram e recebemos muitas propostas de muitos países da região. A seleção esteve a cargo de um comitê de expertos independente que avaliou as propostas considerando seu potencial para avançar o desenvolvimento y producción de vacunas de ARN mensajero en un mediano plazo en nuestra región. Nos complace anunciar que se han seleccionado 2 centros para essa iniciativa, uno en Brasil y otro en Argentina. El Instituto Biomanguinhos, que es parte de la Fundación Oswaldo Cruz, Fiocruz, del Ministerio de Salud de Brasil, fue seleccionado debido a sus avances en el desarrollo de una vacuna de ARN mensajero inovadora contra a COVID-19. Com a incorporação de Biomanguinhos nessa iniciativa, esperamos contribuir a acelerar de maneira significativa o desenvolvimento de esta vacuna inovadora e lograr a produção dela mesma em um prazo mais abreviado. A OPS-OMS pondrá à disposição de Fiocruz um quadro de expertos internacionais especialistas em los diferentes aspectos do desenvolvimento e produção de vacunas dessa índole, assim como o acompanhamento de los avances no processo produtivo e regulatório. A empresa Synergium Biotech foi selecionada para estabelecer o outro centro, o qual estará ubicado em suelo argentino. Synergium utilizará as capacidades de Mab Science como empresa associada para o desenvolvimento e fabricação do ingrediente ativo. Esse grupo de empresas foi selecionada devido à sua ampla experiência em la produção de vacunas e outros biológicos, sua capacidade de desenvolvimento de produtos complexos e por sua experiência em la distribuição de dichos produtos a nível regional e internacional em países de alta competitividade. Además, Synergium ha demonstrado seu compromisso com o suministro de produtos através de los sistemas de compra de la OPS. Sua experiência e capacidade tecnológica permitirão, com o aporte técnico de OPS e OMS e da comunidade de expertos que apoiam o projeto, a transferência exitosa da tecnologia de ARN para o desenvolvimento de vacunas. A instalação desses 2 centros busca criar as bases para a puesta em marcha de uma colaboração regional que aproveite, además, a cooperação com o Centro de Transferência Tecnológica ubicado em Sudáfrica, assim como a cooperação com outros atores de produção da região, de maneira de ampliar a capacidade produtiva que beneficie a toda a região. Estamos apostando a que esses 2 centros contribuirão de maneira proativa em la transferência de conhecimento e de tecnologia em la região, para estender as capacidades produtivas regionais e fortalecer uma cadeia de valor regional em prol de aumentar o acesso e a independência tecnológica das Américas para vacunas de índole crítico e, em especial, para emergências de saúde pública. O projeto contará, então, com a experiência não só da OPS e OMS, sino também da comunidade científica internacional, que apoia a ampliação das capacidades produtivas em países emergentes. Además, sócios clave nessa iniciativa, como Medicines Patent Pool, brindará apoio em temas relacionados a licenciamento de direitos de propriedade intelectual que possam ser necessários para alcançar o objetivo comum. Pero o objetivo de contar com uma vacuna de produção regional não poderá ser alcançado sem acesso oportuno a los suministros e reativos necessários em la cadena de valor. A OPF, com o apoio da OMS, lançou recentemente um segundo chamado à expressão de interesse para produtores da região que queiram sumar esforços para a produção e suministro de estes insumos críticos. A região poderá contar, assim, com uma cadena produtiva de valor com maior autossuficiência, em donde toda a região se beneficie. Esse chamado continuará aberto até 15 de outubro e estimulamos a todos os produtores da região a sumar-se. Me gostaria de ressaltar que essa iniciativa permitirá dar acesso à região a tecnologia de última geração com potencialidade de servir de base para a produção de outras vacinas críticas para os sistemas de saúde de nossa região. Uma vez que se cuente com a vacuna, os dois centros se comprometeram a solicitar a avaliação da OMS para obter a pré-calificação e responder às recomendações internacionais para assegurar sua qualidade, segurança e eficácia. Además, para garantizar um acesso equitativo, a vacuna desenvolvida será oferecida aos Estados-membros e territórios através do Fundo Rotatório da OPF, o qual provê vacinas asequíveis há mais de 40 anos em la região. Felicitamos a los dois centros selecionados. Nos espera um árduo trabalho por delante, pero nos impulsa a convicção de que a recompensa será uma contribuição ao acesso oportuno e equitativo a vacinas para nossa região, a qual continua sendo a mais golpeada por esta pandemia. A OPF e OMS redoblará seus esforços para que, mediante nossos recursos técnicos, nosso fundo rotatório e nossa capacidade de coordenação com os países, sócios e atores principais da região e do mundo, hagamos o acesso oportuno a las vacinas uma realidade. Muchísimas gracias. James, over to you.
Thanks very much, Jarvis. So there you have it, two sites selected, one in Brazil, one in Argentina. Thanks also, Sumia, for explaining the process by which all of this was done with the support, with your support and the support of the team in Geneva. So this morning at the Directing Council, we really heard about the importance of having an enabling environment, having the conditions, the policies in place that really supports the development of these important initiatives. It is for this reason we've also invited the Ministers of Health of Argentina and Brazil to provide some comments based on this announcement to really highlight the work that has been done at the national level to support the development of the industrial base and science and technology within their countries. So I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Carla Vizzotti, the Minister of Health of Argentina, to provide some remarks at this side event. Dr. Vizzotti. Dr. Vizzotti, do you hear us? Do you wish to make your remarks? Dr. Vizzotti, did you hear us? Do you wish to make your remarks right now? Okay, we seem to be having some technical difficulties in Argentina, so we will come back to Argentina. In the meantime, we are also very pleased to have the Minister of Health of Brazil, Dr. Marcelo Queiroga, who is with us, we believe, connected from the UN General Assembly to join us this afternoon for some remarks. Dr. Marcelo?
Senhora diretora da OPAS, doutora Carice Etienne, senhora cientista-chefe da Organização Mundial de Saúde, Súmia Swaminathan, senhor diretor adjunto da Organização Pan-Americana de Saúde, meu colega brasileiro, doutor Jarbas Barbosa, senhoras e senhores, com grande satisfação que tomamos conhecimento do anúncio de que o Brasil foi escolhido pela Organização Mundial de Saúde para abrigar um dos centros para a transferência de tecnologia relacionadas à vacina, em especial aquelas baseadas na tecnologia de RNA mensageiro. O Brasil compartilha o entendimento da Organização Mundial da Saúde e da OPAS sobre a necessidade de se ampliar o acesso a novas tecnologias, bem como expandir a capacidade de produção de medicamentos e demais produtos de saúde globalmente. Para isso, o governo brasileiro defende, em especial, a transferência de tecnologia para países em desenvolvimento, em particular da região da América Latina e Caribe. Nesse sentido, o governo do presidente Jair Bolsonaro, por meio de comunicação conjunta com o Ministério das Relações Exteriores e do Ministério da Saúde, manifestou o interesse em sediar um dos hubs para transferência de tecnologia relacionadas à vacina, em especial aquelas baseadas na inovadora tecnologia de RNA mensageiro. A escolha de tornar o Brasil um dos centros para a referida transferência de tecnologia é resultado e demonstração da histórica capacidade brasileira. O Instituto de Tecnologia em Imunobiológicos, Biomanguinhos, da Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, responsável pelo desenvolvimento e produção de vacinas, kit para diagnósticos e biofármacos, é o maior produtor de vacinas da América Latina e o único da região pré-qualificado pela Organização Mundial da Saúde. Há mais de 2 décadas, vem contribuindo decisivamente para a saúde pública do Brasil e do mundo, inclusive por meio da exportação de vacina de febre amarela para 70 países, resultado de parceria com a OPAS, Organização Mundial de Saúde, e Unicef. Cabe assinalar, mais recentemente, a bem-sucedida parceria entre a Fundação Oswaldo Cruz e a Universidade de Oxford e a empresa farmacêutica AstraZeneca. Em pouco mais de 6 meses, cerca de 100 milhões de doses dessa vacina contra a Covid-19 foram produzidas nas instalações de Biomanguinhos e disponibilizadas ao Programa Nacional de Imunizações, PNI, do Ministério da Saúde. Minhas senhoras, meus senhores, graças à estratégia diversificada de acesso às vacinas contra a Covid-19, o Brasil já passou de importador a produtor de doses. Mas podemos ir além, com a seleção do Brasil como hub regional na produção de vacinas para a América Latina e Caribe. Iremos nos valer da ampla capacidade produtiva de nosso complexo econômico industrial, nossa competência técnica e ambiente regulatório seguro para garantir o acesso a imunizantes ao Brasil e aos demais parceiros da região. Com essa iniciativa inovadora, estaremos avançando mais um importante passo na bem-sucedida história de protagonismo do Brasil na saúde global, calcado na garantia do direito humano à saúde, na promoção do acesso universal a medicamentos e tecnologias de saúde e na construção de sistemas nacionais de saúde fortes, inclusivos e resilientes. Sabemos que o fim da atual crise sanitária depende do acesso universal e tempestivo a diagnósticos, tratamentos e imunizantes. Seguiremos engajados, juntos, às organizações internacionais, países parceiros e indústrias farmacêuticas para facilitar as transferências de tecnologia necessárias à expansão da produção de tais produtos, em esforço solidário para vencer a pandemia e salvar vidas. O Brasil tem plena capacidade e disposição para contribuir na construção de um mundo mais bem preparado para futuras emergências em saúde. Muito obrigado a todos.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for those words on behalf of Brazil. And once again, congratulations to Brazil and to Fiocruz and Baimanguinhos for the selection of their initiative. I'd like to see now if we have Dr. Carla Vizzotti, Minister for Health Argentina, connected. Dr. Vizzotti, over to you.
Buenos días, ¿me pueden escuchar?
Yes, we do.
Hola.
Now. Yes, please go ahead. Yep.
Bien.
Unfortunately, Minister, we are not hearing. There seems to be a poor connection. Perhaps what we can do is we can see if we can improve the connection. In the meantime, perhaps I'd like to ask Dr. Barbosa, as the head of the overall technical departments within PAHO, Dr. Barbosa, how do you see the relevance of this initiative for the region as a whole within the context of the pandemic? And normally, how long does it take to ultimately produce a vaccine, noting that we are very much in the initial stages?
Thank you, James. I think that it's very important to have this side event exactly in the same day that our member states approved their resolution to increase the regional capacity. The pandemic highlighted the vulnerability of the Latin America and the Caribbean since the beginning, when the countries were struggling to purchase the gloves and protective personal equipment, ventilators, PCR tests, now vaccines. So it's very important to take this opportunity and to build on the capacities that we already have in the region to establish this kind of collaboration. So this is not to benefit one or other country. We know that it's impossible that each country isolated can produce all the vaccines and medicines and equipment that they need, but we can, working together, to benefit all the countries in the region if the products are available through the PAHO's Revolving Fund or PAHO Strategic Fund for Medicines. So I think that it's very important. This is not a short-term response, but this is a strategic investment in the region. And I do believe that coming together in a solidarity, with the solidarity that is a very important characteristic of this region, we can achieve this production and to build on this very important first step to have other initiatives to come together, regional production to benefit all countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Over.
So thanks very much, Jarvis. I think in the meantime, I think we've reestablished a connection with Dr. Vizzotti in Argentina. Minister, can you hear us? And if so, over to you.
Muchas gracias. ¿Ustedes me pueden escuchar ahora?
Escuchamos bien.
Sí.
Me alegro mucho. Perdón por los inconvenientes, agradecerles y saludarlos y saludarlas a la doctora Etienne. Estamos acá desde Argentina con la representante de OPS en Argentina y con la jefa de gabinete. Saludar a los colegas de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, de la Organización Panamericana de la Salud, al ministro de Salud de Brasil, con quien nos encontramos en Italia, en Roma, en la reunión de G20 de salud, y donde en una reunión bilateral, antes de saber de esta selección de nuestros países, hablamos de la inmensa relevancia que tienen estas iniciativas, la articulación entre el sector público, el sector privado y los organismos internacionales para poder generar políticas y desarrollos para que nunca más la región de las Américas y otras regiones queden postergadas en el acceso a la vacunación. Así que felicitaciones y celebramos la iniciativa. Realmente tener una plataforma regional para el avance en la producción de vacunas y especialmente en esta tecnología, vacunas de ARN, con la potencialidad que tienen, es realmente un paso adelante, un avance enorme para nuestra región y seguramente va a poder generar una acción mucho más equitativa en todos los países de nuestra región. Así que saber que para nosotros es un honor, para Argentina, haber sido seleccionados, que nuestra industria farmacéutica haya sido seleccionada, es también realmente un orgullo grande entre tantas instituciones científicas latinoamericanas y con este proceso de selección que han expresado en relación a lo que es la Organización Mundial de la Salud, y bueno, también felicitar a Brasil y saber que nuestro compromiso, además de tener una industria farmacéutica potente, una industria con una reconocida trayectoria, con altos estándares de calidad, con 190 plantas de producción, 160 son capitales nacionales, y tienen también en nuestro país 40 plantas de producción pública de medicamentos, una agencia regulatoria a nivel 4 como la ANMAT, según la clasificación de la OMS, y también la mirada de la producción pública, la investigación, el desarrollo y la producción pública de medicamentos y vacunas. Argentina ha sido sede del Foro de Precios Justos en abril, donde se ha puesto en relevancia justamente la importancia de articular en relación no solamente al acceso de las vacunas producidas, sino también a la liberación de patentes y a la producción nacional y regional de vacunas. Así que nuestra experiencia con Synergium Biotech es la transferencia de tecnología y la compra de vacunas contra el neumococo, contra la gripe y contra el VPH, y además tenemos la producción en nuestro país de la vacuna, la sustancia activa de la vacuna de AstraZeneca a través de una empresa que es mAbxience, y el full and finish de la vacuna Sputnik V a través de una empresa que es Richmond, con esta mirada y el trabajo de lo que significa avanzar también en la producción pública de medicamentos y vacunas en una articulación con el Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología, con el Ministerio de Desarrollo Productivo y por supuesto la mirada sanitaria de el impacto que tiene la ciencia y la tecnología en la salud pública. Así que sabemos que lo han dicho también los expositores previos, que la región de las Américas ha sido la que más impacto ha tenido y también ha sufrido un acceso inequitativo por más allá de los esfuerzos que se han realizado para minimizar ese acceso inequitativo. El 70% de las vacunas se han administrado en un reducido número de países y aproximadamente el 23% de las personas de la región han completado sus esquemas de vacunación, y en algunos países inclusive ese porcentaje es menor. Así que volvemos a recalcar la importancia que tiene seguir trabajando para el acceso equitativo de medicamentos y vacunas. Debe ser una prioridad para nuestros estados, es muy importante que la OPS lidere esta prioridad y este desafío. Resulta una condición necesaria para que realmente se pueda acceder al derecho de la salud para todas las personas, así que sabemos que nuestra región tiene una potencialidad enorme, tiene las capacidades para poder desarrollar y ampliar la producción regional, para disminuir las brechas de acceso a las vacunas y a otros insumos estratégicos, así que de verdad creemos que es una oportunidad enorme para poder avanzar en este sentido, y también convencidos que con el aporte técnico de la OPS y la OMS, la comunidad de expertos y nuestras capacidades locales podemos romper este ciclo de dependencia de nuestra región a un mercado mundial de vacunas que está muy concentrado. Celebramos esta iniciativa y nuestro compromiso no solo de ser parte activa, sino también de potenciarla para que sigamos creciendo, no solamente con la vacuna COVID, sino con otras vacunas y sumemos otras plantas y otros países. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Ministra Visotti. Many thanks, Minister Visotti. We do have a few minutes for some comments or questions from the floor. So I'd like to invite perhaps some interventions from the delegates of the Directing Council, the Honourable Ministers, the delegations, if there are any. If you would like to raise your hand and make a comment, we do have 1 or 2 minutes, I think, before we move to closing, noting that we do have to also prepare for the afternoon session of the Directing Council. So do we have any comments or questions from the delegates? Okay. So with that, thank you very much. I think we've received an awful lot of information, some very good news. There's probably a lot to digest, and we'll continue sharing that information with you through the regional platform. But I really wanted to thank everybody as moderator for their participation in the event, and hand over now to our director, Dr. Etienne, to close this for us. So over to you, Dr. Etienne. Many thanks.
Thank you, James. So let me say how really truly pleased I am with what we've heard and seen today. Let me assure the other member states who probably have not heard their countries' names listed. Let me say that this is not the end. This is the beginning. We have already done another call for proposals, because to build self-sufficiency, we need a broader number of countries engaged in inputs, etc. So this is not the end of the road. We have other opportunities, and we hope that many of you will benefit and contribute to this initiative. So let me tell you a little story. When I began my second term in office as the director of this organization, like everybody else, I prepared a manifesto outlining my positions in terms of the priority issues in health and development. And one of those was to increase the manufacturing capacity in the Americas for essential medicines and vaccines that are required for our priority health programs. So, you know, as I listened this afternoon and I heard the richness and the depth of the discussion and witnessed what is the outcomes of this first step in the process, the selection of projects for the development of mRNA vaccines in the Americas, I cannot help but feel, okay, we are truly on the right path to increasing manufacturing capacity. And we will not stop here. We need to broaden this. I may not be the director that sees you reach full self-sufficiency, but I'm happy I started the ball rolling. I'm sorry we had to wait until the pandemic hit us to really realize that this is an urgent need. But what is very clear to me is that we are embarking on a critical and a strategic initiative that will impact millions of lives in our region. And as we begin this work, because, I mean, let's be very clear, this is only the beginning, as I said. I want to urge all of us to remain committed to this collective and other collective objectives in supporting these and similar projects and initiatives that will improve the health and well-being of all people. And one of them is the many initiatives that will come around the resolution that we just passed towards self-sufficiency in health technology, medicines, and vaccines. So let me say that I remain committed as the director of the organization to support the development and coordination of this and related projects in health, as you, the member states, have requested. I also remain committed to work with all of our partners to see these projects developed through the regional platform. And let me say also that I'm really grateful for the directorship of the assistant director, and also the leadership of the director of the department, James Fitzgerald, and his team, who have worked really assiduously on this initiative. As we go forward, we will identify the necessary technical support that is required to further for further product development, and noting the scientific and technical complexities of the task ahead. We will continue to work with member states in strengthening and enabling conditions, including with our national regulatory authorities. So let me add my congratulations to those projects selected as the first of many that we hope to develop through the regional platform. I want to remind you of your commitment, and it is based on this commitment that you are one of the criteria that you were selecting. You are not in this for you, you are in this for the region. And so I sincerely thank all our partners in this endeavor, the private and public pharmaceutical sectors throughout the region, our science and technology base, academia, our international financing institutions, and other key UN organizations such as WTO. Let me say a special thank you to WHO for this initiative and the support that we've had through them. I want especially to thank all of our ministers of health and the representatives of the health sector for your continued leadership and advocacy on this issue. It is your stewardship at the national level and the collaboration across the region that will contribute to increasing the production capacity for products that increase our health security and address our priority health needs. Addressing them in pandemic times, but importantly beyond. And I can't help but stress this region must arrive at self-sufficiency in production of health technology, medicines and vaccines, essential medicines and vaccines. So there's our initial few baby steps, but I have every hope that we will get there. So thank you again, everybody, and thanks for attending this, this short ceremony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Etienne. So we will close now. Thank you.